You would tell me if you were cake, wouldn't you? You would tell me. Nah, I probably shouldn't. Here's some wrestling news. This is a cat, but here's some wrestling news. We have an update on current plans for WrestleMania 37. The reason a top AEW star turned down WWE has been revealed, and a former WWE personality's new AEW role has been revealed as well. We'll talk about that soon. Alright, so WrestleMania 36 didn't turn out quite like we hoped, did it? But WrestleMania 37's gonna be fine, isn't it? They're going to Hollywood, big showbiz extravaganza. That'll be alright, won't it? The world will be normal by then, right? Right? WrestleVotes have tweeted the following. WrestleMania 37 / Los Angeles update. WWE is still very much planning to run the event as scheduled. However, they don't want this determination looming. Heard internally, WWE would like a decision by mid-December from the state of California on large-scale gatherings. Probably not good. They end the tweet on. That's the latest from there. So whilst as things stand right now, we are getting the big Hollywood mania coming up next year, but obviously the COVID situation has kind of made everything a little bit loose and fast on planet Earth. So by December, WWE would want to know either way to save, I guess, what they went through at the start of this year around WrestleMania, when it was all very much thrown out with probably about, was it a couple of weeks, maybe a month to go. Now, I know that wasn't anybody's fault, but still, it gives them time to plan something that they can do within the realms of what they can do. Kind of hope we're at a point come next year for WrestleMania that we can all get back together. I'm aware, though, that lots needs to be done. There's lots that needs to happen between now and then. I'm not like quite a few people, and I'm not champing at the bit to get back into the wrestling arenas and such. I think that not just to do with COVID, but there's a lot that needs to be repaired in the wrestling world before we start getting back to it properly. And I feel that even though WWE and AEW are still running shows the way they are, in terms of getting fans involved, I think lots needs to change. And we'll do it when it's safe to do it. That's absolutely the right way to think on it. Speaking of AEW, we had Brian Cage challenging Jon Moxley last night at Fight for the Fallen. Jack will be along later on with AEW Fight for the Fallen Graded, and Ross will be here with a WTF moment as well. But Brian Cage had a chat with TSN about his decision to go to AEW as opposed to WWE. You have to believe a guy that looks like Brian Cage was certainly taken for a couple of dinners with WWE to try and bring him over, like usher him off the sea like the sirens on the coast. Brian Cage said to TSN, "There were multiple factors in my decision. I think just overall, it was the cool new thing that everybody wants to be a part of, but to be able to break through the reach I'd already done, the Ring of Honor crowd, the Impact crowd and so on, I felt like I needed to go to a bigger national scene like an AEW. AEW has the most unique, cooler potential matches, if you will, and all of them would be first time ever matches, whereas everywhere else would have been repeats and not as exciting." He then says, "If I were to go to WWE, I wouldn't have as much creative control. That, artistically speaking, was a big reason why. I'm going to a place where I can showcase my abilities and have the most fun, intriguing matches, and I had more personal desire to go to AEW than anywhere else." And I get that. AEW, you certainly get the feel that everybody is a little bit more hands-on with what they're doing. There's more of a sort of a business feel about WWE, and I like NXT. I've been really enjoying NXT. We'll do Graded in a bit and we'll talk through this week's episode, but you do get that vibe that it's sort of one vision, head forward, but with AEW everybody sort of has ideas on what they can and can't do. For good or for bad, everybody gets to shout up stuff, and I feel like Brian Cage is in a good place right now. He's also the FTW champion, which is a belt that Taz held in ECW, and Tony Khan was a guest on PW Insider, and he talked a little bit about how this came to be. Tony Khan said, "It was a few weeks ago. Taz told me he had it. Once I found out he had it and we were able to use it, I wanted to make it part of the story. I wouldn't have done it without his blessing. So once he said he still had possession of it, and I checked, and we were clear to use it, then at that point I was like, this to me is almost a no-brainer. It adds so much to the story, to the presentation of Brian Cage. It's so much credibility. I grew up watching ECW, as you know, and that belt meant a lot. Even though it's not a recognised championship, when it's defended or when you saw it, it felt like it was part of the presentation of Taz as one of the top wrestlers in the sport. And I think it can be the same thing for Brian Cage. That is a quote from Tony Khan. And again, it speaks to the idea that the creative is very open within AEW. As soon as Taz kind of toyed around with the idea of the FTW belt, it became a thing on television. I like it as a fit for Brian Cage. The idea of him kind of carrying on that legacy. And even though, like, whether he is a champion or not in AEW, the whole FTW belt thing is something that he can carry with him as well, and I really like it as a thing. On the subject of unofficial championships, let's talk the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, currently around the gorgeous waist of Moose on Impact every Tuesday night. Moose is gearing up to defend that bad boy against Tommy Dreamer at Slammiversary, and he talks a little bit with Wrestling with Sports, a little bit about what the plans were for the TNA Championship. This was part of something that they were building to. Moose says, we actually had to change the storyline a lot, because the initial storyline we were supposed to have TNA, There's No Place Like Home. This was the TNA Retro show they were going to do during WrestleMania week. And the main event of that show was supposed to be a King of the Mountain match. They were going to announce the day of the show on social media that now the King of the Mountain match was for the TNA Heavyweight Championship. I was supposed to win it, but then coronavirus happened and everything got shut down and that show got cancelled. We were denied a King of the Mountain match. I'm devastated. Because the one thing a ladder match needed was multiple pinfalls and a penalty box. And you know what? Why? Why would you want to take something down from the top of the arena when you could hang something up on top of the arena? Oh, TNA, you rogue you. So we were denied a King of the Mountain match at the Retro show. However, the TNA title will be defended this Saturday at Slammiversary, a very much talked about Impact Wrestling show. In fact, yesterday on the Cultaholic YouTube channel, I went through all 20 plus people who have been teased for a debut / return to Impact Wrestling. There's been a lot of names thrown around, and we go through all of them on the Cultaholic YouTube channel. Just going to put this to rest, okay? Because a few people have asked me about it. I know it's option C. I said option X in the video by accident. If that's the only fault that you can find with it, we've done all right. Love you. There is some concerning talk around the National Wrestling Alliance this morning. So we haven't had NWA Power on our YouTube streams since the start of the pandemic. And then obviously the speaking out movement happened. As a result of allegations stemming from that, Dave Lagana stepped down from the National Wrestling Alliance. Now, Lagana was very much the one that was pushing and putting all these shows together. So they were looking for somebody to come in to lead the online content once again. That was the last I heard. That was a while ago. Raven spoke during Hannibal TV. And he mentioned the following: I think Billy is shutting it down from what I hear. From the grapevine, I heard that Billy's not opening it back up. He's really disillusioned. Of course, referring to Billy Corgan, the man who owns the NWA. Now, Billy Corgan hasn't commented on this. This is just something that Raven, who has previously worked with and had friendship with Billy Corgan, has mentioned on Hannibal TV. So take that with a pinch of salt. I mean, I'd be devastated if this is the end of NWA Power, but nothing official's come out yet, so we're not going to panic just yet, but it's worth mentioning that that's out there. And finalement, it's only appropriate in these wild and woolly wrestling times that we announce the return to prominence of Vickie Guerrero. Yes, the Karen of professional wrestling is well and truly back as part of AEW. So she was obviously part of AEW. She did some commentary on Dark a little while ago, but this is a more permanent role for her as she has been introduced as the manager of Nyla Rose. This was something that Rose teased a week ago, and there she was last night, now guiding the career of Nyla Rose. This isn't a bad shout. Like, Vickie Guerrero is a wonderfully diverse character that will very much split the crowd between people who love her or hate her. You either love Vickie Guerrero or you hate Vickie Guerrero. She's very much like that. Personally, I think she's great. I think that's a great addition for Nyla Rose. And I'm enjoying how AEW seems to be bringing the managers back. There's a lot of that at the moment. Obviously, we've got Arn Anderson in the corner of Cody. We've got Jake Roberts in the corner of Lance Archer. We've got Taz with Brian Cage, as we've talked about. And now we've got Vickie Guerrero as Nyla Rose. I love the work of a wrestling manager. I'm a big fan of the wrestler manager role. And I'm happy to see through AEW that it's becoming a thing again. If there's one thing we can take away from the great bit of nonsense that has been 2020, it's the return of wrestling managers. That and Keith Lee winning all the belts. But the return of wrestling managers. I'm sure Ross will have something to say about the return of Vickie Guerrero in WTF moments, AEWTF moments rather, on the YouTube channel a bit later on today. Anyway, that's it from me. You look after yourself, and whatever you do, don't. Love you, bye.